Hey, Don. First of all, when does Tuukka start?
Yeah, well, he'll be in practice tomorrow and backing up tomorrow night. Then Bob and goalie Bob and Butch will make a decision from there.
Okay. And how's it? Is it going to play out with the rest of the goaltending picture? Will Swayman go down to the taxi squad, or how are you going to handle that?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Jeremy this afternoon. He'll be reporting to Providence. Jeremy's actually not eligible for the taxi squad. Should we have an injury or COVID or some sort, then certainly Jeremy might have the opportunity, and we expect that he would play. May play a big role in that. That's part of the process of having the depth that I think is required. In what we're all facing. But he'll be reporting to Providence tomorrow.
Yeah. Was he disappointed by that, or was he braced for it?
Disappointed. Not overly surprised based on what it was trending and how it was tracking for Tuukka's health and potential availability. We didn't have a necessary timeline. Even the plans that we had sort of laid out were disrupted. So I'm not going to apologize for not announcing what our plans are. Internally, we knew what the plans were, but even those went sideways with the cancellation of recent games in Providence. But Jeremy took it in stride as a professional, and he's extremely motivated to be a top flight goaltender, which we believe in. He knows that, and the commitment we made to him. Part of it was this summer and trading a good young goaltender in Daniel Vladar and allowing Jeremy, to play even opening night for that matter. And he knows he's a big part of our current team, and as well as moving forward. Most importantly, he's got a hell of a long career in front of him as a Boston Bruin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Matt Porter.
Hey, Don. Could you speak to the aspect of Tuukka Rask as a development coach? Obviously he's here to play and win and chase the Stanley Cup, but how much do you think he can offer to Linus? He's obviously been there, done that. I imagine he won't have too many opportunities during this season to get with Jeremy, but if those opportunities arise, but more so for Linus, just as a confidant and an older coacher.
Well, I think that Tuukka's very open to really extending himself in anywhere. Jeremy's that matter, going down to Providence and, talking to Ryan Mougenel in terms of how receptive Jeremy was to anyone and everyone. Tuukka was to anyone, down there. I think he's at a comfortable place. He's just gone through an extensive rehab and committed to playing hockey, which, really, you wind it back coming out of the playoffs, there was no indication that he was necessarily going to play anymore based on his health. So, I think that he's very open, and Jeremy's part of that. They have a good relationship. I think Linus and Tuukka will do well together, push each other, continue to improve in the areas that they want to, and help our team win hockey games. And that's what ultimately why he re-signed, and we move forward.
Jimmy Murphy.
Hey, Donnie, can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
Okay, great. Just if you can take us sort of what got it sort of over the hump here to get the signing done today, what led into today?
Well, again, I think we had an understanding as he was going through the process that he was healthy, that I think he was going to try and play, and credit goes to Tuukka and Marcus Lado for to committing to the outline of what we felt we had to have happen salary wise with the contract, and Tuukka was committed to that. Just wanted to be part of a group that he's spent his entire career with, and as an organization, it was always about his health and first and foremost, and his commitment to want to play, and watch him go through the rehab and all the stages and steps, barring the opportunity to play in Providence. We got to the point where he's ready to go, and he's playing an awful lot of hockey. He's got a lot of games in the bank to go back on. We realize the conditioning and the timing and things will have to be built in as we go, but he's ready to go from a health standpoint and committed to our team. So credit goes to them and obviously the organization for providing the opportunity for him to continue his career.
And just a quick follow-up on a separate topic. Ken Holland today was just talking about Evander Kane, how he had expressed interest in him, and he said in general he believes players deserve second chances. You don't have to get into details whether you've reached out to them or not, but what's your take on that and a player in a situation like that? And would the Bruins kind of have the same approach to at least investigate it and, give a guy a second chance?
Well, I think all 32 teams would do their due diligence as to where they stand on any particular player and second chances and how they fit into the culture. And, we're no different in that regard. Obviously some of those things are at the ownership level and trickling down and present what you think you're trying to improve your team. And every player is different. But I think we all have to do what's right for the organization and make a decision, move forward. And, I don't think general managers are doing their job if we don't investigate every opportunity.
Kevin Dupont.
Don, contrary to, I guess, the expected image of me being the oldest and most cynical of the bunch here, I'm amazed at how economical or how cheap this deal is. Is there any part of you that's amazed by that?
Well, I applauded, as I referenced, Tuukka and Marcus. They're not blind to the salary cap challenges we all face, and so I appreciate them working with us in that regard. It really doesn't change other than strengthen the depth of our team and hopefully puts it in a really strong position organizationally without necessarily changing the cap dynamic. And you realize that we were probably $60,000 within the cap the other night to field our lineup. So it's not going to change going forward. We've got 17 or 18 teams that are in LTI, and we're, teams go along, they hover on it. So, as I said, Tuukka and Marcus deserve an awful lot of credit in that regard, Kevin.
And I'm left in this day and age because we know everybody looks for every nickel left in the couch covers here, that it actually gets done. So I'm left to ask, what's his intent behind this, or what drives a guy in today's age to take this humble amount of money?
Well, I think, in some ways, Tuukka's, sometimes too honest. He's just a guy that wants to go back and play hockey, and he committed to the rehab part of it, the process, which is not an easy thing. He could have just faded off. He's done a hell of a career. He's leads and wins. He's got a lot of things on his resume, but he wanted to play. He wanted to see how he would feel with having had the surgery and his health being in better accord. And as I said, the credit goes to Tuukka and his family and Marcus for committing to that, and certainly to his teammates, because I think that they appreciate, and as he does with them, being part of a pretty special group of players.
And I've got a couple quick ones. I apologize because my feed blipped on late here. If you've addressed this, he's here. He can play tomorrow night. Will he play tomorrow night, or you not know?
No, Linus is starting tomorrow night. We'll just go from there. Tuukka will be here, starting the process of getting in the flow of game day, and he'll back up tomorrow night, and we'll go from there. And Bob Asenza and Butch make the decision as to when the goalies play. And we've got an incredibly busy stretch coming up, not just pre All-Star, but I think coming out of the All-Star, that the likelihood is, we'll probably have to find some games to make up, and we're going to have a busy stretch. So as I told Jeremy today, and I tell the other goalies, with what we're trying to navigate, having a very deep in that position is probably going to be important for us, and we may have to tap into it.
And lastly, do you have to do any money things here to with the cap, or you're good there now?
Well, every day is you're maneuvering players at times and on and off. It's just part of the exercise that we all go through, depending on the injuries and such. And you see that Foligno and Frederick are out of the lineup, and Zamora's out of the lineup, and Forbert's out of the lineup, and Coleman's out of the lineup. But to answer your question, no, we don't have to do anything once you make the swap with Jeremy and Tuukka.
You think Foligno's going to be a bit?
I'm not sure. We're waiting for the MRI results to come back and Dr. Asnes to give us the update. He was walking around and doing a little stuff, this morning as well. So hopefully we're on the shorter side of the injury.
Okay, thanks for all that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Pluto.
Hi, Don. Two questions. First on Tuukka. I know it's just for the year, and he mentioned he wants to play this out, but is part of you curious about what might happen afterward, just given the surgery, how he looks? Do you even think beyond this year when it comes to Tuukka?
To be honest with you, I'm not really looking that far ahead. I'm focused on where our team is at, and strengthening any position we can, exploring opportunities to be the best team we're capable of being. We've shown some good signs of coming out of the break and having our depth, be put together. Obviously, the line change affects that, but looking beyond this year with Rask and elsewhere is not where my focus is. Excited that that Tuukka's gotten an opportunity to play because he's a hell of a goaltender and deepens a position that I think, as I mentioned, with the number of games we have coming up, I think we're going to need.
Okay. And then second of all, you look at the trade market and boy, it looks complicated in terms of COVID and cap. And I guess the taxi squad relieves a little bit of it, but how has this current landscape affected the general chatter, and whether it dampens any urgency or just kind of puts you guys as managers a little bit in limbo, or maybe it doesn't affect it at all?
Well, I mean, certainly COVID and reaction, even the conversation you've had, players might be popping in and out, whether or not they get a holiday of some sort coming out after players have been gone through the protocols, may change the landscape, and some teams that are coming back on. You've got teams that haven't played for extended periods of time. They need to make up significant games, as do we. So as you get closer to the deadline and teams have sorted to jockey, I mean, certainly you got some teams that have separated early on in the season, had tremendous starts, and we're trying to climb our way back in our division. And there's no question there's some challenges associated with the cap. I think the league did a nice job of putting together a taxi squad to give us some flexibility and not play short, which I think a number of teams, including us, have had to do during the course of the season. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just reactionary in terms of what we're all trying to navigate. And it'd be no different than the trade market. At some point in time, there's going to be a couple trades, and maybe it loosens things up, and maybe it might bump up against the deadline itself, as teams are trying to be very cognizant right now of actual player supply.
Go next to Joe Haggerty.
Hey, Donnie, I would imagine you're pleased about the way the team has looked in the 6 games coming out of the break. Just some of your thoughts on maybe some key things that you've noticed in the elevated play we've seen in the last 6 games, and just how encouraged you are by, some of the things that maybe you guys drew up on the chalkboard in the summertime with bringing players in, sort of coming to life on the ice, it seemingly in this last handful of games.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pleasantly surprised with the results and how we've gotten there in terms of the depth and some of the line changes that Bruce and some of the players discussed have certainly worked and given us a boost. I think the goaltending has been strong for the last little while, as I referenced, a few months ago, that it was okay, but it's trended in the right direction. Credit to them, credit to the players themselves. It hasn't been easy in any team, as well as ours. Sometimes, we had a player in one game found 8 minutes before we were going out in the ice and he was eligible to play. So those are challenges mentally and physically. And I think our team's done a nice job of trying to get together, get on the same page. And we had several new faces. So where do they fit? Has been some of the challenges presented, but they're professionals and they're doing a good job. And I think they're enjoying them, getting to know each other now and gelling a little bit. Obviously, with Taylor and Pasta going in with Holla, it's certainly given us a bump. But we've also had some players that have contributed on the bottom part of it. Our defense, look at Matt Grzelcyk with five points last night. It's important, but it's not going to change going forward. Only going to get harder with the number of games and injuries and such are going to come along with that. But we're happy with the uptick, and we're just hoping to continue the momentum.
Last question, Scott McLaughlin.
Hi, Don. You touched on, Swayman being a little bit disappointed, but maybe not surprised. How much is that mental side of it, a consideration for you when you have a young player who's showing that he can play in the NHL? And, is there concern about maybe a letdown or how that might affect him when he gets sent down?
I'm not going to share all my conversation that I had with Jeremy today, but it was certainly some things we touched upon. Having, the opposite direction, but having driven 95 north over the course of my time, a long time ago, I understand the disappointments of especially when you feel like you've positioned yourself to be in an NHL team. You've had some success, and it's generally not a straight linear path. Take the opportunity to work on your game and expand it, and realize that there's challenges associated with everybody's professional career. And Jeremy, to his credit, recognizes all those things. I think the single biggest thing that came out of my conversation today was he just stared at me and looked and he said, well, if those two guys struggle, do I get the net? And that's what you want to hear from a player. And any young player that has confidence in himself and he's had some success, will accept the fact that he's got some things to continue to work on. But in a competitive, environment that we're trying to win, the best players are going to play. And I don't think Lemus and Tuukka would look at it any differently. And so hopefully it's just a bump on the road for him in terms of, it's not a huge setback. It's just a matter of going, gain some experience, in some situations that we've got some areas of his game we would like him to continue to work on. And he's going to be a goalie for us for a long time. And that's ultimately what the message was.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, media, for joining us. We'll be back on this same link at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow with Tuukka Rask.